Vasudevendra Yogendram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattva Bodho Bhidiyate. Sat Eva Idam Agra Asit Ekam Eva Advitiyam. How did it all start? In the beginning, what was there? Existence alone was in the beginning. And now, in this morning, we woke up, we had our experience of talking, of eating, of breathing, of thinking, of joking, of laughing, of sitting now here. We had our experience of sleeping, of waking and dreaming. All of this came out of existence alone. Once upon a time, none of this was. None. So now, you and I, the experiencers of this, how did we end up here? What happened? Okay? And we had a diagram here, and we discussed how it all happened. So, in the beginning was this one non-dual, homogeneous, nirvikalpa, without any division, existence. Because you cannot have something come out of nothing, so naturally there has to be something. And in this existence, what obtained a creative power? We call this Maya Shakti. What kind of power is this? It is a power that has no limits. It can produce, it can create, it can connect, it knows love, it knows all sorts of things that we have. In fact, it knows no hate. Then where does hate come from? If this is all knowledge, all power, where does hate come from? If it has no hate, then where does hate come from? If it knows no separation, then where does separation come from? If it knows no error, if it has no ignorance, then where does this thing that we call ignorance come from? We said there's no such thing as ignorance.
Pretty good.
When, look at this, we call it ignorance, get rid of this word. There's either all knowledge or there's what? Non-total knowledge. You either have total knowledge or you don't have total knowledge. If there is total knowledge, if there is no total knowledge, then everything other than what I don't have, in reference to that, we say, I don't know. You understand? I know, I still know, I still know, I still know, I still know, but what is it that I don't know? Everything outside the boundaries of what I know. So you cannot now put ignorance to Maya. We said, you, the individual, comes out of the causal. What is Maya? Maya we call the samashti, the total causal, just causal, total causal. When you assigned one aspect of this total causal, one aspect, you don't need to give everything to make up a human being, do you? You don't need to give, human being who's just there to, transact, say a few things, work out their stuff. You don't need to give them powers to fly and walk through walls and to, do all of these funny things. It's just going to be a distraction. So what do? You give the human being this much. Oh, just enough to work out my stuff. So now, if I'm given this much, it means what? I am caused by this much. You understand? I'm caused by this much. So this means your causal is just a minuscule of the total causal. Your causal body is just a minuscule of the total causal. Therefore, naturally, you and I, as human beings, are not going to know everything. So now we cannot say, oh, Maya is, this ignorance. See, this is what? When I don't know everything, from my standpoint, I don't know. So in reference to what I don't know, we call this word avidya, okay? Otherwise, you cannot attribute ignorance to Maya. If you attributed ignorance to Maya, then what would happen? Then how would all of this come? That means what? It would be covered from knowing how to create this. So when we say now this Maya is made up of 3 qualities, with these 3 qualities, SRT, they can be divided into the macrocosm, samashti, and the microcosm, vyashti. When the macrocosm, that means when SRT operates at a macro level, at that universal level, then these SRT, what is this? Sattva is responsible for a blueprint of creation. So how does the plant work? How the plant is to respond to the weather? How the water vapor will arise and then fall down, precipitation, how that will interact with the soil, and how the plants how quickly they will germinate, and in what way they will germinate, and how they will respond to the seasons, and how deep will the roots go, and the worms to eat one leaf and not another leaf, and the birds to migrate during the winter season, and the snakes to know when to, not to attack and what to attack, not to attack a mongoose or to attack something else like a rat. All of this intelligence, including what is right and wrong, including what is appropriate and inappropriate. This is also the program inbuilt in all knowledge, all power, specifically the sattvic aspect. How fast does light speed travel? 299,000 something kilometers. Why not 150,000 kilometers per second? I don't know. But what does know? This one. So why is water evaporating? I don't know. But this knows. Maybe it's evaporating so that it can generate clouds and then we can have water and survive like this. We don't know ultimately. But who is it the one that we study when we study and we create books after books after books on knowledge? And we have professors teaching a semester, 4 semesters on one topic. We call this geography, architecture, music. How much knowledge is there to teach in just one single topic? How did this knowledge come? Once upon a time, we did not know about anthropology, archaeology. We did not know about this, but we started to study the world. We started to study the laws and the orders in this world, and we made some observations, and then we started to write things down. And then someone else got born, and they started to look at that and found some holes, because their observation allowed them to see something different. What did they observe? They observed the sattvic aspect of the total causal. And so what do? We built libraries of books that are to be now studied, and then you have to have an exam and see how well you know. And then what happens when we are sick, you and I, we go, oh, this knowledge is amazing, but who do we go to? We take our body to a doctor. What does a doctor know? They too have studied the physiology, the biology, the chemistry of how this body is to work. Where did they find that from? They found that also from the sattvic portion of the total. So what is it that you and I are ever talking about, ever studying, getting our exams, and passing our grades for? We're all, looking at the sattvic portion of the total blueprint in this universe from which all of our libraries of knowledge comes. They said in the 1800s or even before 1700s, we suddenly had an explosion of knowledge, of information. What happened? Suddenly people got tuned in. They started to observe. They took curiosity. And then we started to find about observing an apple. And then the apple falls to the ground. And then Isaac Newton asks, why is it? What force is pulling this apple downwards? I've never thought about it. We all saw these forces pulling things down, but what is this force that is existent, which if you leave an object, the object goes downwards and not up? And so what do? Then we create more knowledge about one order in this universe called gravity. So like this, we slowly build up. And so how much more knowledge is there? Limitless. What we are experiencing now, since the birth of this world, 4.5 billion years, is a minuscule of how much more knowledge there is in this universe. So we don't even know, how hot the molten core in the center of our Earth is. We can only speculate. We don't even know, how truly deep, the Earth goes down. We can only speculate. How many more things do we not know about our own human bodies? My friend in Australia, she works with cancer, and so what do? They look at the genes, the genome of a cancer, and they want to find out how can they make modifications to the genome in such a way to prevent breast cancer. And I tell you, she's working with so much computer data. You need supercomputers to work with the data of the genes, of the genome. So we take one genome, and that alone is a huge, vast amount of information. Who created all this? Where did all this come from? You see, we don't even understand. All we are doing is looking at the outside forces, and then we are just studying this, inputting it into our computers, and trying to make sense out of it. For whose benefit? For our benefit. So this is the sattva guna. And then we said on a microcosm, this means at our level, macrocosm, total, samashti, vyashti, microcosm, at our level here. The same sattva guna, when it manifests, how does it manifest? It manifests when you're happy, when you're having a laugh or a joke, or you just feel good. So what's happening? Sattva guna is in this moment dominant. In your predisposition is dominantly sattva guna. This raja guna, we said, on a macrocosm, the samashti, what happens? This is the power that is able to project outwards. So it projects what? It projects what outwards? It projects the material in the light of the knowledge. You understand? If you want to, you cannot just project knowledge. You need material to be projected and sculpted according to what? The knowledge. Because if you take an element, you can't just project random blobs of elements outwards. They need to be sculpted in such a way that there is intelligent order, intelligent structure for every atom that's present. So just like if you build a house, how do we build a house? We need three things, right? We need knowledge of the house, we need the architecture, how deep the foundation goes, we need the labor, we need the labor, also raja guna, labor, the energy. And what does this energy do in the light of the knowledge? The labor in the light of the knowledge, it sculpts the house using concrete, pipes, electrical wires, and so on. So anything to create, you need always three: knowledge, power, and material. And therefore, we have knowledge, power, raja guna, power. So when we say Ishvara is sarvajna, all knowledge. What is all knowledge referring to? Sattva guna, like a Maya, but specifically the sattvic portion of Maya. When we say sarva shakti, that means all power, almighty, he's almighty. What is this referring to? His power to create, to project. And then when we say all materials, all materials that we experience in the five elements and so on. What is these five elements? Dhamma guna. So this Dhamma guna expresses itself more specifically into five portions. Five portions, which not just Dhamma guna, but all of them work together to create five portions from which now, before everything has come, before you and I were here, we were slowly, you and I, being constructed little by bit. We were being put together. By what? By this intelligence. And what happened? What did this intelligence do? It started to create our five organs of perception, our faculties. Because what's going to happen? you need to put the person on earth eventually. Now, the question from So Kyung came, why? Why do we have this in the first place? Okay, why do we have this in the first place? Because look at it this way: if we didn't have Maya, this would not be happening right now. Okay, but we do have Maya, therefore this is happening right now. So now, if you ask why all this, because we said that the world comes from Maya, right? Then why? How did this all begin? Or not like this, but why? Why do we have creation? Why do we look at this question? Why do we have creation? It's like you asking now to me, Andre, why did you come down? What are you implying? Once upon a time I was not here, and now I had a reason. I thought of it. I thought of coming down. So this means from my own free will, right? I just said, I want to come down. So this means what? Once upon a time I was not down, and then I decided to come down when? In time. So now if you ask the same question, why do we have all this? The error is where? In your question. Why? You understand? Because Brahman, existence, is what? Anadi, it's beginningless, it's without a beginning. You understand? Brahman is without a beginning. But this power is never apart from consciousness. So if consciousness is without a beginning, then this power is without a beginning. So therefore, if it's without a beginning, what's the point of asking the question, why all this? What are you going to get? What are you going to gain from such a question? If Maya was beginningless and so was consciousness beginningless, then why are you asking, why do we have all this? Because it cannot be any other way. Thank God that we have all this. This is how amazing consciousness, this power is. That means it's what? A power that is limitless, and consciousness just happens to enjoy this power. It just happens to enjoy it. Why does it? I do not know. Nobody knows. I don't care. It just happens to enjoy this power. And because of this very power, we have a problem. Now, what is this problem? It generates the world of multiplicity using SRT. And so when it does so, when it constructs us, human beings, then what happens? We're like, oh, here I am, a small being. But before we get to that part, let's go in here. So what? Before we get to that part, oh, I'm a being right here. I'm a small being. Before we get there, before we even get to say that, what happened? 5 organs of perception were built, 5 organs of action were built, faculties. We have the 5 pranas, and we have the inner instrument, which consists of 4. Now, in the verse, which we haven't read, it says, now we will discuss the 24 principles of creation. 24 principles of creation. So let's see. We've got 5 elements, 5 subtle elements. We've got 5 subtle elements, 5 organs of faculties of perception, 5 faculties of action. We have 5 pranas, and we have, so that's 5, 5, 5, 5, that's 20. And we have the inner instrument, which is the manas, sankalpa, vikalpa, buddhi, concrete thought. We have chitta, recollection, and we have the ahankara, the one that knows the mechanism that makes this individual that's constructed, this constructed individual right now says, I am over here, I am not over there. That's the ahankara, the individuating mechanism, the localizing agent. And then we spoke about now how do you go from these subtle elements, how do you go into this physical element? See, space, let's just look at this. Space, what do we mean by space? This is space right now. Space is accommodating Earth, the sun, the moon. It's accommodating, other, supernovas, accommodating other galaxies. Okay, it's accommodating everything. So that's space, easy to understand. And then we have air. Air, you're breathing right now. Air does not just mean like physical air. It also means that which is in a slightly denser state than space. What's slightly denser? Well, you've got hydrogen, you've got oxygen, you've got lithium. These are all many other gases, and they are in a gaseous state. So this means you need something in a gaseous form to, to have this universe work, the way that it's working right now. So, and then you go a little bit further. You have fire. Where's fire right now? I don't see fire in your blowing your hair. Your hair is not on fire right now. Where's fire?
Digestion.
Digestion, digestive fire, because it's acid, so enzymes. Where else is fire? Body temperature, definitely. It's touch, and it's, I went to my mom's house just a couple of months ago, and she has the hottest hands in the entire world. I could not bear even 2 seconds. It was like a furnace. And I'm going, my God, Mom, you're like a furnace. You got so much prana flowing through you. So this is, I tell you, you could cook an egg on her hand. It was, and I had to politely say, I just need to remove your hand. And I had to tell her later because I didn't know what to do. I felt a little bit rude to move her hand. And I said, Mom, I did that because, your hand was so hot. And so this is prana, I tell you. What else is heat? Speech. When you speak, you generate heat. This is why if we say something, we can generate heat. We call this krodha, anger. Also fire is also for speech. Why? Because speech represents light. In other words, by my speech, I either can throw light onto matters, I can throw light and reveal something, or I can equally burn, I can destroy. You can burn a whole city with your speech, with the wrong words. So this fire is also part of your makeup right now. And then we have water. Water, so important, right? And your skin, your shape of the body, it shapes your body, this water. So water also we need to be to have thirst satiated, because the body, is mainly water. Now, one thing that I've always been doing, this is just a personal thing, is very early on, about 17, I got a little flyer. Back then they used to have direct mail, they send constant letters into your mailbox. And there was this advertisement for water quality. And so they had this leaflet of distilled water, different water filters, and they were selling you the benefit of purifying your water. And they were showing some things about, if your brain is also water, then it makes sense to remove all of the impurities out of the water that you drink, because that can significantly impact your brain and your body. So, and I just thought this is a great idea. So since then, since 17, I've been buying their filters, so the water is pure, takes all the chlorine out, takes the fluoride out, takes all of that out. But I always believe that water, because your whole thing is water, should be healthy and clean, so that your system has an easier time of, just eliminating all of the wastes. So, so water, and then earth. See, where does your body come from? It comes from earth, okay? It comes from plants, come from earth. Plants come from herbs. Herbs come from soil. Soil comes from seeds. Seed comes from the previous plant. The previous plant, came from the soil also. That came from the water. The waters came from once upon a time when it all evaporated into the clouds, then fell to earth, created the oceans. And that came from once upon a time when there was nothing on earth, just molten lava, still cooling off. And that once upon a time was just a bunch of dust coming together, pulled by gravity into one central core, and slowly densified itself, started to attract by the virtue of what gravity, other particles, and the earth grew. And now you and I are sitting here going, oh, interesting, how much took place just for earth to be built, this physical substance. When there's an earthquake, we had an earthquake in Melbourne recently. I tell you, you appreciate immediately what you're actually standing on. We're like, oh, earth is so fun. But you hear that thunderous strength, that power, and you feel so small, so like, my God, I forgot that I'm actually standing on something that is supporting me from birth to death. So earth is also, all these 5 now are what? Densified. And how are they densified? We said, remember the formula? We had a party. We had a party. And so, what happened? I gave you my space cake. I gave you my tamaguna cake. I did not give you my sattva guna cake. I did not give you my rajaguna. See, I was space, remember? I was Mr. Sato Space. I only decided to give you my tamaguna space cake. And I put it on the table and I said, I want 1/2 for myself, and I'm going to give the other half, right, into quarters. 1 quarter, 1 quarter, 1 quarter, 1 quarter. The moment my friends had a cake, my tamaguna cake, they transformed from subtle element into the gross element. And therefore, now this all happened at once. It's not like, let's take turns and go to a party. This all happened at once. The moment it happened, instantly in that moment, the time, space, and everything else just created, at once. In scientists, they will say that, what do they say? Planck time, right? 10 to the negative, what's the number, if Diderik knows? 47, 39 or 42, I think. So 10, so this means 0.0, and then like this 42 zeros, 2 or something, like 1, 0, 1 of a second. That's how this is called the smallest unit that physics can measure, Planck time, that they measure. And in this time alone, the universe came. So this is what they're, according to their instrumentations, this is what they say. And I don't doubt it. Science is also an amazing field of knowledge that should be respected, and it does not contradict Vedanta at all. In fact, it supports Vedantic aspect all the way. Except where does science stop? Science can tell you about this much, okay? Like how this just popped up. But because of what it popped up, that's where science ends and Vedanta begins. In fact, because science cannot answer, we have what? Quantum field theory. What is quantum field theory? So instead of reducing everything down to bosons and mere particles, we say what? Well, there's something. There's just, what do they call it? There's string theory. So this is a postulation how these intelligent strings are the smallest units from which everything else arises. So they're trying to create some model to explain how do you even have the smallest particle intelligently put itself together into a bigger particle, and that bigger particle intelligently puts it together into something bigger, and then all the way from the smallest into a single cell organism. And it doesn't stop there. The single cell organism has the intelligence to what? Divide itself. You've seen this under the microscope, right? Or they go 1, 4, 8, 16, 30, it's almost like binary, 32, 128, right? So where does this intelligence come from? As we said, this is the sattvic aspect. So this means, look at this, if SRT is the foundation from which all comes, so by definition, everything that comes after SRT is what? Is infused with intelligence, with the power to put itself together, and obviously the material. Understand? So this is why we say, wherever you look, no matter how small you look, the particle, you will always find it intelligently being put together. This is what science cannot explain. But Vedanta has a solution. What do we say? Look at it. You cannot now say that the material has put itself by accident. Just the fact that the material is being put together with a structure, with an order, it's an orderly process, implies what? Intelligence at every single level, no matter how deep you go. And what is this intelligence? We said is nimitta karanam. This is technically, when I say nimitta karanam, I mean what? Intelligent cause. That's called, technically it's called sattva guna, when I say nimitta karanam, the intelligent cause. So you understand this? Okay?
Perhaps here's the big difference with science, because they say everything is chaos, more or less, and it's a bit of a...
Chaos.
Yeah.
I heard this before, I heard this.
Coincidence that we are here, and...
Yeah, they have a different definition to this chaos. Oh. See, no. Chaos, I don't know what their idea is of chaos. There's order here, there's no chaos.
Yeah.
What does order mean? Because, see, why do you get up every day? You trust that the ground will be still there. You trust that the gravity will be there tomorrow. Okay, even if you have black hole, okay, then what black hole is a product of certain orders that take place for that black hole. What they say is, right, the planet, the sun loses its fission, its nuclear fission. So now the sun starts, just like our sun, if it were to lose its nuclear fission, it would then what? It will grow, and eventually the gravity gets so strong that it has to turn on itself. The whole sun has to turn on itself. And this center, where it turns on itself, that center is called the black hole. Now we can show that. That's predictable. Whatever sun does that, whatever sun goes out of energy, goes out of power, it will always have that process. So we can observe anything in this universe has a predictable order to it. So now when they say chaos, I don't know what exactly they mean chaos. Does Diderik know? I'm not sure. But it sounds like to me.
From chaos comes order.
Yeah.
From chaos comes order. Okay, so I have no right.
Chaos because they cannot predict what will happen. But if you have forms and then you let it go, there will be a form structure.
I see.
They cannot predict what will happen. That's why.
I see. So
Control. There's no control.
Right. So they cannot quite figure out what's the next predictable location or movement or next event.
So actually it is a concept. It is a concept.
They cannot
Nothing more than that.
They didn't know, so they make a concept.
Yeah. Okay. I need to research more about it. We cannot quite opinionate what we don't know. So we can see a lovely order. So what does order mean? It means that even if it's random, what do I know? It will be random. It's not going to be suddenly orderly. That's what we mean by order. You understand? But they're actually analyzing the actual event. But what does Vedanta say? The fact that it's going to be random, that is always going to be random. It's not going to suddenly be not random. So this means that there is an order. There's an order in disorder. This is what they say, okay? So you have to look one deeper, and so, instead of just kind of looking at the event, we cannot figure out. The fact that, it's random implies what? That it's always going to be random. That much I have certainty on. That is order. Okay, so now where are we? Where did I stop? Where am I?
I think we need to come down to the Shiva.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're like, come on, hurry up.
No, we have 2 more days.
Okay, so I believe we said about the space cake and all this. So now, the natural event is going to take place is, see, when all of these subtle organs are created, right, and the mind's created, you need to put this this subtle matter into some densified matter, so you can work with it. You can work with your desires. How are you supposed to express your desires if you don't have an object to walk up to and interact with? So the way to make that happen is we need to create an object which will be fancied, and we need to create the wanter and the wanted. Why do we need to do this? Because the wanter, by definition, has these raga dveshas. And when do these raga dveshas begin? Remember, creation is circular. They never began. They were always there. So by definition, raga dveshas were always there, and therefore there was always a one ter, and by definition there was always the one tid. So this means all three were there all along. The pramata was there, the subject was there, the prameya was there, right? The object was there, and the pramana, the experience, was always taking place. Since when? Since no time. It was always like this. Therefore, what the jiva, the jiva always had desires. These desires always compelled the jiva to go into the real world and to transact and to fulfill, their drive for being something, becoming something, learning about something, studying about something, discovering, even discovery of AC by Nikola Tesla, the light bulb by Thomas Edison, the theory of relativity by Einstein. All of these are what? Desires of these men who had the need to discover something to work with and to show people, to help them out. If you and I did not have AC, alternating current right now, what will happen? The world will be a different place. Nikola Tesla had what? A need to constantly innovate, and therefore he innovated even radio waves. So whatever radio waves we have right now, it came from one single mind. One mind that was tuned into what? Tuned into one aspect of sattva guna. And therefore, this means if you tune your mind to a certain interest, you bring a certain interest, this mind will tune in to this limitless knowledge, and out of it, it will extract, and it will come into its mind, and we call this innovation. We call this the light bulb, we call this AC, DC, and we call this, Teflon, the non-stick surface, the zipper. All of these were problems that the inventors wanted to solve once upon a time. Do you enjoy cooking? Yeah. Do you find it how convenient it is to just put an egg or whatever and it doesn't stick onto that pan? Yeah, we take this for granted. Some fella here created the Teflon. So this Teflon was again tuning into here. So what are you depending upon? Ishvara. Constantly you're depending upon Ishvara for your life to work out. Which is why when we prostrate to a form, what are we prostrating to? Are we prostrating to the actual material? What are you prostrating to? To the upadana karanam or to the nimitta karanam? So whenever we worship or devote, where are prayers going to? What are we saying? May the intelligence, this is just a form to identify with, because we have eyes, we have the need to relate. So any form, it doesn't matter what form it is, but when you prostrate to any form, you're not prostrating to the material, you're prostrating to the intelligence because of which this universe is ruled, is governed by right now, and is making your life very possible to discover who you are and to therefore solve the problem. So therefore, prayer is, devoting, acknowledging this intelligence which you and I are totally dependent upon every single day, which is why prayers, are so important. My teacher, Nima, she's huge on prayers. Once upon a time I thought, what is this prayer? How do I prove that a prayer even works? Maybe it's just, some hocus pocus that we've been told. No. Let's go back to this. If there is an order in this universe, by definition, for every effect that I put, I'm producing a what? A cause. For every effect, including a prayer, is also an effect. It's an action. By definition, if there is an order, then there can be no time when you do something without it having a direct or an indirect effect on your life. Therefore, when we pray, what are we putting? Another cause into the universe. And if you put enough causes, it has the potential to slightly negate what we call our papam in life. It may not guarantee it, which is why sometimes if we pray and we say, I prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and nothing has happened. It's not that nothing happened. It's that what was about to happen, that means your destiny, what was about to happen, was too strong and you could have not negated it. But it doesn't mean that the prayer didn't work. In fact, I can show you many times when I did pray sincerely with an intention, and this is something that has to be experienced, and it just fructified. One time,
Why do you call pray a cause and not an action?
a prayer is a cause, so it's an action. It's an action, but every action has to have an effect. That's what I meant to say. It has to have an effect, and this effect can be either what we call drishtam or adrishtam. So what is drishtam? Drishtam is it's got immediate effect. But usually all prayers are what? Adrishtam. They're unseen. So this is why we have such a hard time believing these things, because we want to see immediate results. But a prayer doesn't work like that. You put a cause into the field, but you have to be at the right time, at the right place, where that actual result can come back to you. So this means if you pray and pray and pray, let someone kind of acknowledge, my brilliance. Let me someone acknowledge my brilliance. Someone acknowledge my brilliance, and you keep on praying, but never go out into a conducive place where someone can actually acknowledge you. Then you're by definition postponing your prayer to the next life, because we said no action goes without a reaction. So this means I can keep on praying and then die, and only then next life, to that person who I have no connection with, they will be experiencing the benefits of the prayer of this person in this life. So, okay? So this means, see, because it's an order, so everything carries over. There's no question of one thing just going to waste, you understand? Where else is it going to go? If all that is here is this one gold, then even a thought being made out of gold, and when I pray, I'm sending what? Gold out. So with this gold being sent out is going back into the gold. Therefore, even thoughts produce what? Effects which cannot be not experienced. They have to be experienced by law, because this is a universe of order. Okay, any questions? Comments?
So you say prayers are equal to action.
What's what?
To action. It's a kind of action.
The prayer?
Yeah.
Prayer is an action, yeah, like any action, it's any action. And what's the point of this discussion? It's not how to pray, you know how to pray. It's not who to pray. Does this matter who to pray? If all that is here is Ishvara, Nimitta Upadana Karanam, then if I pray to a cockroach, I mean, I don't know who's going to do that, but by definition, it's the same intelligence that's making that is also making everything else. But the reason why we don't pray to cockroaches and we pray to, like Shiva, right, is because we have an emotional connection, and therefore it makes it more relatable. But by definition, if one were to be sort of more objective, it doesn't really matter if you pray to a wall, because it's also material, it's also intelligence.
That's like acknowledging that you live in a divine field,
It's
which
exactly.
is beautiful.
It is so beautiful,
It makes you happy also.
and this is it.
You see that, that's
Yeah,
a big advantage.
this is it. So it's really, to acknowledge this. We say, how do we make Vedanta practical? I tell you, I just go back to my teacher. She says, pray. She prays all the time, because every time she prays, humility is coming in. She's bringing this knowledge, and this knowledge, it kind of uplifts your mind a little bit. So pray, and I think Dayananda has a nice book. If someone knows prayers, there's a title on it, Prayers.
Yeah.
So yeah, this. So Dayananda, maybe you can read Dayananda's book on prayers. And so it's a very practical way, a very humble way to live. You say, how do I make this practical? Do I just contemplate about all of this? Well, you can, but you can't do that all day. So this means we take on a devotional life. A devotional life, as you said, to acknowledge the presence, to acknowledge the order. This order, which has been before this body was born, is right here, right now, sustain your body and will survive even after this body goes.
I have a little doubt. If this order is all knowledge and all power, it basically knows my desires and what's best for me, doesn't it? Like
Yeah. So you know your desires because you're not apart from all knowledge, all power. So you cannot say this all knowledge, all power. All knowledge, all power is what made you now say that. So you know your desires because this is all knowledge, all power right here, manifesting this person called Felix. You know, they say, you know, God is watching. God is always watching you. Who's watching? Who's watching? You're watching, okay?
But this is a question. You can't say God's mind is functioning like our mind, can you?
Yeah, so...
It's easily you think like, oh, there's some Ishvara thinking like us and then knowing everything, but it can't be like that.
No, it can't be like... See, careful.
A bunch of laws, no?
Yeah, you see, Ishvara, we confuse this, what's it called, this anthropomorphizing, I think that's the word, when you, juxtapose your human capacity onto Ishvara. So you think Ishvara now has this huge mind. Ishvara supplies the capacity to think, supplies material, supplies the power to think. Ishvara itself doesn't think. It's just that which supplies materials, supplies the power, and supplies the knowledge for what? For things to be working according to the laws, but also according to your free will. So it's just that which facilitates you, gives you the potential to do as you wish, according to what? To your free will. According to your capacity to choose, according to your ability to have freedom of choice.
You didn't say karma, eh?
I did not say karma.
Free will. Free will, okay.
For me, prayer brings in a way the heart into the Vedanta, because then it's a way how I can express my gratitude for everything, and that's very nourishing to me. That's
Very nourishing, yeah.
It's lovely, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it keeps you centered on this knowledge. You bring in divinity, but see, when you bring in divinity, what are you bringing specifically? See, this is very interesting what my teacher said. The reason why sometimes we go into Vedanta for years and we don't quite relate to it is because there's two languages in Vedanta. There's the intellectual language and there is the emotional language. And so now, if I say to you, Ishvara, look at this language, look at this. Ishvara is the efficient and material cause. How does that sound to you? Intellectual or emotional? But now, look at this. If I say, Ishvara is my mom, my dad, my parent, the one who I can always rest in its lap. How does this sound to you? Okay, I'm resting in Ishvara's lap. I am swimming in Ishvara. So this is now emotional language. So this means if we stick too much with intellectual, then it's just a bunch of formulas flying on in your mind, right? And it's very hard to live like that. And this is a very valid question because I was in Nima's class and someone, they actually are from Germany, they asked this, and I know them. They said the question, I've been listening to this, but I cannot quite live it. I'm not living it. And we all try to contribute a little bit, and we were all like taken back, like we could not quite give some advice that was satisfying this gentleman. And so next week I came back to Nima's class, webinar, and she said, I thought about it, and this is what I like her. She always thinks about things that she couldn't quite answer, and so she said, so she brought this emotional, intellectual language. And I'm like, my God, I never heard of this from any teacher. This is genius. So then I started to incorporate deliberately different kind of language so that, I feel it in the heart, but also I connect it with the rationale. Therefore, reason, and we call this head-heart, or having a handshake. So this is also something to practical. This is practical now. I think we had more hands come up.
But it makes a difference to which aspect or devata we give our prayers. For instance, we can pray to Ishvara,
Yeah.
we can pray to Shiva.
Exactly.
Whatever. Is it different?
Exactly. This is a wonderful question. You see, and sometimes we say, I don't have no one to pray to. Or sometimes we say, my gods are anyone. I've got Ganapati, I've got Saraswati, I've got Brahmaji, I've got Vishnu, we've got Shiva, right? You've got so many. Whoever attracts you, whoever inspires you, so whoever you have a personal connection with, the important thing is to know to who am I praying? To who am I praying? Because when you pray to material, which is here in this world, this material is an effect of what? The 5 elements. 5 elements are an effect of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas has its being in the final reality, Sat, Chit. So look at this beautiful understanding. So by definition, when you pray to anyone, when you express this divinity, you're what? Praying to forms. You're praying to intelligence. Nimitta, Upadana, Karanam. But nimitta and upadana has its being and cannot be apart from the final reality. Which is why I said yesterday, the way to arrive to living this, what we call a Jivan Mukta, is not by what? Trying to postulate this, bring into your mind, I am Satchit, I am Satchit, I am Satchit, okay? Because you're objectifying what cannot be objectified. If the wave in the ocean, a single wave in the ocean, tries to what? Think about water, the irony is it's distancing itself from the water. We call this Jiva Srishti, because it's creating water, which is made out of, into an object in its little mind. And therefore, it's actually separating itself from the water, even though it's not separate. So what does now the wave in the ocean do? Knowing that the whole thing is just water, instead of trying to say I'm water, it's just as we say, understanding that this entire ocean of forms, what do you and I see throughout the day? Nothing but forms, one after another. That is your gateway to what? To understanding that the truth of every form is what? Sat Chit. And we already did how to prove this, because, paper is because paper awareness. So we said always what remains. In every form here, what's common? It's always is an awareness, without which it cannot exist. So this means everything enjoys this final reality. So when you pray, this is what is to be kept in mind. What the truth of this divinity is myself. Because by definition, if everything resolves into Sat and Chit, then nothing can be apart from Sat and Chit, including the one who is praying. So this means what? Before, the worshipper and the worshipped were different. Now, through understanding, the worshipper can still continuing to worship, but understands that there is no essential difference between the worshipped and the worshipper. Okay.
Like tuning the radio and get on more health or something, and you think about it, and then you tune on the energy line of health. Is this sort of like a metaphor? If we're gonna have everything is.
I'm not getting the question.
If you're praying, you want better health.
Yeah.
You're gonna pray for it. You're gonna pray. Is that something like you're gonna tune in on the energy of health? What is?
Yeah, good. So now we're talking about devas. I will bring devas right at the end of this course. But for now, see, just when you pray, what are you saying? You're acknowledging this is important enough for me. That's basic. So whatever we pray to, we're saying this is important enough, and therefore let my subconscious work on this in the background. This is another aspect to it. You're just acknowledging what you find, what you value, and therefore your mind will automatically move in that direction slowly, especially when you pray with sincerity, because you don't want to disappoint yourself. I don't want to be praying with sincerity, and in the background I'm saying, no, I don't really care about this. That's a contradiction of character. So prayer has what? Unseen effects, and also right now it slightly aligns you with this, with this sort of what is important, that is worthy of pursuit.
But can you also say that you need these two languages for the first one, the intellectual one, to hear the knowledge and
Yeah.
to assimilate? You need the heart side.
So the question, if I heard properly, the first need,
It's actually not a question, but more you need them both.
you need them both.
Them both.
However, what happens, see, firstly, to understand this, see, we call this Shravanam, right? Shravanam, this is just listening. Listening and just putting our stuff aside. So in order to do, listening, you obviously have to, because how, if I take away, knowledge, this is what we call crazy bhaktas, right? They're devoting, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, right? It's like, almost like monkeys, but there, what, there's no, and because I lived in Byron Bay, in Australia, so they have a lot of this stuff there. So now, but where is that directed to? What's the understanding that is causing me to jump like this? And do I know towards what I am jumping? Have I analyzed that? So now they have heart, for sure, but it's not backed up by something concrete, some knowledge. So what we say now is, gain the knowledge first. Don't get stuck there, because then we restrict ourselves from integrating it, from living it, from feeling it, from experiencing this knowledge. Now you say, how can you experience knowledge? How do you experience knowledge? Easy. When you know something, your experience changes. Sokyung was just telling me, when she heard this model, she now, she gained the knowledge yesterday, and now she starts to look at this world, not as just world, but now through elements. These are just elements. They're just effects arising out of these three gunas. So that has a direct perceptual change. And she was telling me how it makes her, feel a little bit lighter. So therefore, we gain knowledge, and then it changes our experience naturally.
But say this knowledge is a bit intellectual in the beginning. If you have a lot of shraddha in it, will this transform over time, like your perception?
It cannot not transform, because we're like seasons. We go through seasons, and there's a stage. I even notice a stage in my classes on Zoom, where there's sometimes, especially the woman, they will sometimes say to me, I suddenly feel I've lost interest in things, like I cannot relate with my friends. They're just talking about wearing these saris and, all these necklaces, and I just, and I feel fake. I don't want to participate. And I go through this sort of a 1 or 2 year period of having to deal with this. So, and I tell them, hey, I've heard this before, I know where you're going. You're actually in a stage where this knowledge is starting to grab you. You're starting to perceive the world differently. And usually after the 2 year mark, they will get out of this period, and suddenly there will be no more concern. You will just be okay, your new life has sort of taken hold. So same thing here, Shraddha. With Shraddha, anything can be, this Shraddha builds what? Titiksha, resilience. So if you have faith in this knowledge, faith in the teaching, and then I have faith, all the faith in the world for my teacher Nima. She has never let me down. She always answered my questions, my calls. She never, rejected me. I always felt safe in her lap. So I trust her totally. This is called Shraddha. And because I trusted her, I stuck long enough to totally capture her vision of reality. And that is a blessing. How? Through faith alone. That's all I had, faith. So faith can take you very, very far. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.